keeping a big secret from me and my mom, and it seriously shocked me to the very core. My family has always struggled for money. Both my parents come from quite poor backgrounds, but my mom is the kind of person that will work until she passes out. She never grumbles about being tired from working so hard. She just gets on with it. I wish I could say the same about my dad, but he has always been kind of lazy. And to top it off, he recently got fired from his security guard job. He was caught watching movies at work instead of keeping an eye on the building he worked at. And because of watching the movie, he failed to notice 2 people sneaking into the building and robbing a whole shop. So, yeah, he was fired, and that meant even more pressure from my mom to provide for us. We assumed Dad would go out and get another job straight away, but of course, he had no good references and no one would hire him. It really annoyed me. I always saw ads looking for people to work, even at restaurants. He could have done anything. Washed dishes, stacked grocery store shelves, walked dogs. But no, my dad was lazy and it drove me crazy. After about a month of lying on the couch all day, he started to complain that he had a sore back and maybe it would be better if I went to work after school to help Mom out. Well, I lost it. I started shouting at him, telling him how embarrassing it was that he lay at home all day while Mom worked herself to the bone. We were so broke, I had to actually borrow my friend's books for school. Mom couldn't afford to provide us with rent and food as well as my school stuff. When I told Dad this, he just shrugged his shoulders. But then one day, he overheard Mom crying to one of her friends on the phone about how bad things were, and I think that was the turning point for him. The very next day, he went out and found a job. And when he came home and told us, we were so excited, we threw a little party. He started the following day and told us he was working at a food distribution company. I was impressed and, for the first time in ages, felt proud of him. Every night he'd bring home food for us, and he even gave me money to buy new school books. I gave him the biggest hug and felt so touched. Finally, he was supporting us. Suddenly, my dad was bringing me all kinds of things. New sunglasses, a cell phone, designer sneakers. I think he was really trying to make up for how he'd treated me before. And my mom was so happy. She stopped working in the evenings and finally started to relax a bit. She deserved it. After all those years of hard work, my friends started to notice that I had new things and asked me about them. I was so proud to say that all these things were bought by my dad, and even told them the name of the company my dad was working for. It all felt a bit too good to be true. And it was. One night, I was over at my friend's for dinner, and her dad asked where my dad was working these days. I told him, and he furrowed his brows. Then he asked if I was sure. I told him I was definitely sure, and then he told me that was weird, because he worked there, and he had asked around, and no one had ever heard of my dad. I could feel my face turning red. Had my dad been fired again? Had he been lying? I went home, and Dad was sitting on the sofa eating a cake. Mom was laughing next to him. I thought about waiting, but I was so embarrassed at what my friend's dad had said, so I asked my dad. And I knew as soon as I did that he had lied to us. He was stuttering and tried to make up an excuse, but I could see right through his lies. And then he confessed everything. That he didn't have a job. He just walked around during the day and stole things from bins. Mom immediately burst out crying, and I just stood there, shocked. I felt disgusted. I quickly took off the watch he'd given me the week before. How could he do this? I started shouting at him, and he said we'd put so much pressure on him, and he didn't know what else to do. I couldn't believe he was blaming us. I asked where he got all this new stuff from, and I said there was no way he was finding sunglasses and things in bins. And then he told us. He said there was a homeless shelter that people often donated stuff to, and that he'd go there early in the morning and rummage through the stuff. He got caught once, he told us, and he said that he pretended he was homeless and they felt sorry for him. So every time he went there, they gave him stuff. I was absolutely horrified. He was even selling stuff he found. That's how he could sometimes give us money. Then my mom asked about all the food, and he said that lots of restaurants have a big box at the back entrance full of leftover food for homeless people. My God! My dad was a complete fraudster. Both Mom and I were so disappointed in him. For days we didn't speak to him, and he just lay on the sofa and sulked. Then, one day, I got up and he was on the computer applying to jobs. He begged us to forgive him. He said he could change, that he could find a real job. I don't know if I believe him. But what else can I do? It's my dad. I just have to hope that